June 17, 1970, Memphis, Tennessee. The lights dimmed inside the Mid-South Coliseum. The crowd was electric, restless, and loud, the kind of energy only Elvis Presley could command. It had been a long tour, a demanding run that stretched the limits of his voice and body. But tonight, he seemed alive again, like the king had found something burning inside him. The orchestra tuned quietly. The sweet inspirations, his backup singers, adjusted their mics. Then that voice came over the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, Elvis Presley." The crowd erupted, flashbulbs burst. And then Elvis walked out, dressed in his white jumpsuit, high collar, rhinestones glimmering under the stage lights. He took a deep breath, smiled that easy smile, and started singing. "Well, it's one for the money." The arena thundered. People screamed his name. Every note hit, every move sharp, every word dripping with confidence. But behind the charm and the swagger, Elvis was exhausted. He'd been battling the toll of fame, the pressure of being both adored and scrutinized. Still, when he looked out at the thousands of faces, he remembered why he did it. For them, for the connection. Then it happened. Somewhere from the right side of the crowd, among the cheers and flashes, a voice cut through the noise. A man slurring his words shouted something ugly, a racial slur. The sound pierced through the music like a knife. For a moment, time froze. The band stopped. The brass faded. Elvis's hand dropped from the mic stand. The crowd didn't understand what had been said. Not everyone heard it, but those who did felt the temperature of the room change. He turned his head slowly toward the section where the shout came from. His jaw tightened. The audience murmured, whispering, waiting for him to brush it off, to keep singing. But Elvis didn't. He set the microphone down, walked to the edge of the stage. His boots echoed against the floor as he leaned forward, eyes locked on the crowd. The tension was heavy. Security shifted, ready for something. Then he spoke, calm but firm. "Now, I don't know who said that, but let me tell you something, friend." The crowd went silent. He paused, his voice steady. "I don't care what color a man is. I care about what kind of heart he's got. You understand me?" The room erupted into applause, loud, wild, unified. Elvis didn't smile. Not yet. He pointed toward the crowd again. "I grew up around good folks of all kinds. Music don't have a color. Soul don't have a color. And if you're here tonight, you leave that hate outside this room." The applause grew even louder. People stood. The sweet inspirations were clapping behind him. Elvis nodded once, took a deep breath, and turned back toward the microphone. He whispered into it, almost like a prayer. "Love's the only thing worth singing about." And then he started. "If I can dream of a better land." It wasn't a concert anymore. It was a moment of history. His voice trembled, but not from fear, from conviction. Every note of "If I Can Dream" filled the arena with emotion. People cried. Some held hands. Even those who didn't understand the depth of what just happened felt it in their bones. For the rest of the night, Elvis performed differently. He wasn't just entertaining, he was testifying. Each song carried the weight of what he believed: unity, love, equality. Flashback, 1954, Memphis recording service. Elvis was 19, broke and hopeful. He had just walked into Sun Records to record a song for his mother. Sam Phillips, the producer, noticed something in him, that blend of country twang and gospel soul that no one could quite place. When Elvis sang "That's All Right," something changed, not just in the studio, but in the world. The sound was new, raw, alive, but dangerous to some. Radio DJs got flooded with calls. "Who's that colored boy singing?" "Nah, that's a white kid named Elvis." People didn't believe it. They couldn't understand how someone could mix black rhythm and white country in one sound. Elvis didn't care. He grew up in the poor neighborhoods of Tupelo and Memphis, surrounded by black gospel, blues, and soul. Those sounds were part of his bones. When he performed, he didn't see lines. He saw music, one language. But not everyone did. Throughout the 1950s, Elvis faced criticism from both sides. White conservatives accused him of bringing black music to white kids, while some in the black community feared he was profiting off their art. Still, he never disrespected the roots of his sound. He always said, "Rock and roll's been around a long time. It's just been called the blues or gospel or rhythm and blues." That's what made the 1970 concert moment hit so hard, because it wasn't just a reaction, it was everything he stood for, coming out raw, unfiltered, and real. Back to that night in Memphis. After the song ended, the crowd was still on its feet. Elvis wiped his brow with a towel and smiled faintly. "You see, music's supposed to bring folks together. I can't stand up here and let hate spoil that." Applause, whistles, cheers. Then, almost jokingly, he added, "Now let's get back to singing before I get myself in trouble again." The crowd laughed. The tension broke. He launched into Suspicious Minds. His energy was back, but different. It came from pride, not showmanship. The man who had once been called controversial now stood as a symbol of unity. Later that night, backstage. The mood was quiet. Elvis sat alone in his dressing room, a towel over his neck, his jumpsuit half undone. Charlie Hodge, his longtime friend, walked in holding a soda. "You all right, E?" Elvis nodded slowly. "I'm fine, man. Just tired of all that hate out there." Charlie sat down. "You handled it good, real good." Elvis didn't answer. He stared at the floor. "You know, I just keep thinking about where I came from. Folks who had nothing, black or white. We didn't care about none of that back then. We were all just trying to make it." Charlie smiled. "You made it, all right." Elvis looked up, eyes tired but soft. "Yeah," he said. "But I still got something to prove. Not to them, but to myself." Days later, newspapers picked up the story. Some criticized him for making a political statement. Others praised his courage. But for the people who were there that night, it wasn't politics, it was humanity. The footage from that concert spread quietly through fan circles. You can still see it. The moment the band stops, the crowd goes silent, and Elvis speaks with fire in his eyes. 1972, Madison Square Garden, New York. A journalist asked him about that night. "Elvis, do you consider yourself an activist or political figure?" He laughed. "No, sir, I'm just a singer. But if my music can make somebody forget their hate for a few minutes, I guess that's something, ain't it?" That's what made Elvis timeless. Not the fame, not the gold records, but the soul. Even at his lowest, even when his health declined and the fame began to crush him, he never lost that instinct to stand for love when it mattered most. 1977, Indianapolis, Indiana. His final concert. He was weak, struggling, but when he sang Unchained Melody, his voice soared. And somewhere in the crowd that night, someone remembered what he said years ago in Memphis. "Music don't have a color. Soul don't have a color." The king wasn't perfect, but he used his voice for something bigger than music. That's why decades later, people still talk about him, not just as a performer, but as a man who believed, deeply, that everyone deserves respect. June 17, 1970. One shout, one silence, one song. That's all it took for Elvis Presley to turn a hateful moment into history. And when the lights went down that night, the man who once made the world dance reminded it to feel, not hate. Because love, as he said, is the only thing worth singing about.